Hello. So my name is Kristy Moos, and I'm the Digital Asset Management Advisor at Ingenium, which is Canada's Museums of Science and Innovation. And
I'm Catherine Campbell, librarian at Ingenium. Today, we wanted to talk to you about how digital asset management is used in our library and archives in a variety of ways with a focus on reference services. For context, we run 2 libraries, 2 archives, a corporate archives and IM shop, plus the DAM with a staff of 10 people, and one of us is half-time. And digital tools that enable self-service are vital.
we'll start with an introduction to our organization, followed by a brief explanation of what digital asset management is and how we use it, and followed by some specific reference and research examples. First thing, I want to introduce Ingenium. We're a Canadian Crown corporation that oversees 3 national museums: Canada Agriculture and Food, Canada Science and Technology, and Canada Aviation and Space Museum, all located in Ottawa. There's a permanent staff of around 230 people. As you'll see in our presentation, our DAM system is a tool that we use to help us provide reference services and resources for both external and internal patrons. Each of our 3 museums are represented in the DAM, as well as our marketing, communications, facilities, finance, and HR departments. So on the screen, you'll see photos of our museums plus our brand new collection management facility, which we just opened in 2019, literally the week before the pandemic. We moved in. Top left is Agriculture and Food. It's a working farm and has over 160 animals, working dairy operation, demonstrations, and exhibit halls. Top right is the Aviation and Space Museum. You'll find exhibits that feature aircraft, jets, engines, as well as the Canadarm, different space artifacts. One of our library and archives locations is there. Bottom left is the Canada Science and Technology Museum, which reopened in November 2017 after a complete rebuild. We've had a lot of building in the last 5 to 7 years. Here we store about 150,000 artifacts, everything from actual full-size locomotives to the tiniest little medical instruments. And here you'll also find our main library and archives, where our archival collection holds about 800 linear feet of materials, and our library manages over 100,000 items. So what is digital asset management? I'm sure most of you know, but we use it across all 3 of our museums, and besides being the best acronym of all time, DAM, refers to the storage, identification, and rights reuse management of media assets like photographs, videos, audio files, sometimes animations. This photo is a little bit of fun with the acronym. It's actually from our archival collections, but it illustrates the function of a DAM to hold assets until they are needed and release them in a controlled way. Because of the nature of our institution, we have user groups with a variety of different needs. DAM is part of Collection and Research Division, but we're not limited to this area. We go across all of our services, working hand in hand with digital, IT, marketing, and our museum colleagues. We use security policies and user groups to ensure access is controlled, but we also keep things as open as possible. Whenever we talk about DAM, we try to use humor. It can be a challenge to explain why DAM is important for all of our users. So we like these 2 memes. They're, again, using our collection, illustrating the most common questions I receive. Where is this photo, and can I use this? It's important to all users that they can access what they need and know how they can use it to avoid frustration, added costs, and potential risks. Groups also create assets that can be used elsewhere in ways they didn't originally think of. For example, a photograph shoot done at Science Camp at one of the museums could be used in marketing, it could be used in programming for training purposes, or in a presentation by the CEO. Another good example of our highly reusable materials are our archival photographs. Ingenium cares for collections donated by different organizations and individual donors, and the archives team has been digitizing and cataloging for over 30 years. These images are used heavily by researchers and collectors and enthusiasts as in the general public. They're also used by our marketing department on social media, by our exhibitions and development teams to tell stories about technological innovation, and our programming teams to give context to demonstration and school visits. Our archivists need to ensure these assets are cataloged according to their standards, and the dam supports this using metadata schemas we have developed in-house. This in turn allows us to publish them to an online collection portal for the public and provide internal access with additional rights and usage information for our colleagues. This portal, called Collection Online, contains both archival and artifact images. So if you search one term, you'll get access to everything we have. We also have open data sets that are available to download through there. I'm just going to back up a little bit and discuss why we needed a dam at Ingenium. This was our question back in 2010 when we began implementing a new modern information management infrastructure. We had 4 goals: allow internal teams and external researchers to access the assets they needed, make it easier to discover assets, providing clear rights and usage information, and manage the risks of losing assets or recreating assets that already exist. Our first piece of advice for building a dam program is to have a long-term plan, but start small and move fast. When we launched our dam, we focused on the historical archives as a pilot group because we had very good, well-described data. We had a bulk of high-value assets into the system, and then we could begin the process of rolling it out to everybody else. People need to see it in order to understand how it's going to be useful for them. Our long-term plan was to push the dam to all the departments, and to facilitate this, we conducted business analysis with each group in 2018 to really understand how staff was using digital assets, where they stored them, how they created them, and to figure out the best way to promote the dam to solve their common problems. We learned that, unsurprisingly, people really care about their digital assets. People described how once they found an asset, they copied it into their own folders for later and they would hide them. The problem is they might not have the right version or the right resolution or even the right to use that image, and they're not as hidden as people think they are. So I was going to give a demo, but I think I'm just going to offer that if anyone wants to come see it after. We use OpenText Media Management, but the system itself, it's got standard features. We've got folder structure for browsing, keyword searches. People can create personal collections. They don't need to download everything and then share it with people internally. They can actually create folders within the system and share them. So it's really, really great that way. We have our different metadata schemas depending on the type of content we have. We also have a robust training program where I talk to people often as soon as they come into the corporation, and then every year I put out several come and talk about DAM and see if it can help you. And then I do one-off trainings if people ask. So DAM is now a core system at our organization, supporting initiatives such as the Collection Online I mentioned earlier. It is hosted on-prem. We might move to the cloud at some point, but right now we wanted to keep it internal. It means we have control over the system and what features get rolled out and how it gets used. So that's working for us for the moment. We do use a cloud-based site that links to the dam called Hightail, which shares assets externally. And we've even used it to create what we call digital reading rooms, where we will upload a whole bunch of assets and send them out to a patron if those assets are not yet available to the public because of murky rights or other issues like that. So this has been helping us with our reference questions. We send these out quite often. I'll just kind of give you a quick example of a research project. A student from Carleton University's Digital Humanities program came in and used our DAM to review hundreds of archival photos from a collection from Domtar Eddy Pulp and Paper Mill, and they created a Minecraft world based on these photos. The map includes a walkthrough of our library archives in the old Ingenium Center, and then there's historic photos acting as portals that go to different activities. They recreated the mill using these photos, so students can kind of walk through the site and see what it looked like. The goal of the project was to create a proof of concept for using archival sources to bring educational opportunities to places where students already were familiar with, like this popular game. I'm sure most of you heard of it. So I'm going to hand things over to Catherine to talk about a special collection we are working to get into the DAM, our trade literature collection. Oops.
The Ingenium Trade Literature Collection includes more than 46,000 cataloged items at both libraries, and at least as much again in our uncatalogued backlog. While it was initially collected to support the artifact collection, it stands on its own as a research resource. This material consists of mostly printed ephemera produced by manufacturers and distributors to promote the sales and use of their products, including advertisements, catalogs, price lists, and manuals dating from the 1800s to the present. The collection supports the study of the history of manufacturing, the development use of various technologies, material culture, marketing trends, and printing history and design. The material often includes illustrations of the use of these technologies in the home or the workplace, as well as depictions of the manufacturing processes. The collection was originally cataloged in the same system as the artifacts, but now resides in the library system, and we use Circe Dynix Horizon. The collection is used extensively by a variety of clients. Our collection staff consult the trade literature for cataloging and conservation work on artifacts. Curatorial staff use it for researching acquisitions, material culture research, and exhibit preparation. Artifact handlers use the manuals to aid in the moving and storage of artifacts. For example, they use some of our aircraft manuals to locate lift points for aircraft. Exhibit design staff incorporated the material in exhibits. When we reopened in 2017, it was an opportunity to showcase the collection, and a lot more trade lit was added to the exhibits. Students from local universities and colleges, such as the previous example, often use our collections for their research projects. Enthusiasts who are interested in a variety of topics consult the collection. For example, people who are interested in the history of railways in Canada consult our employee timetable collection. Aircraft manuals are very popular as well, and we've recently had several requests for details on the design of ejection seats in fighter jets so they can safely dismantle them. And finally, staff from other museums request reproductions of trade lit. For example, the recent Inter-Access exhibit on Taladon. Trying to move quickly. When I first started working at Ingenium, too many years ago to count, we had a full-time technician who microfilmed some of the collection for preservation purposes. The quality of the images was not very good, the color was not preserved, but there was some access for content. But still, because of the collection did not circulate, so people had to travel to our site to use it. In the early 2000s, we entered the digital age and started to send out material for a local reproduction company for preservation scanning in small batches. And we only managed to get 1,000 items scanned before the budget ran out. So I don't know if you can really see, but the early files that we received were JPEGs and TIFFs, a combination. They saved the text pages as TIFFs and the image pages as JPEGs, and they were all numbered like 00001.jpg, etc., which horrified me. Each item had these pages stored in a folder, and the folder name was the call number, and then they were in turn stored in folders under general subject headings, but it was still pretty scary. And there was no thought put into how this material could be accessed or used, and it's currently stored on an internal drive with only a few of us having access to it. So while the plans for the dam always included trade lit, we needed to figure out a process for adding it. So jump forward to 2020, and we're working from home. So Kristy and I decided to experiment with uploading some of these files. We mapped fields from the library catalog to existing metadata schemas in the dam and selected a small subset with clear rights. I had to make sure the metadata in the catalog was up to date. And we had to figure out how to get the metadata into the dam. We started out by just copying and pasting. And then, okay, this is not very efficient. So I started exporting records from Horizon and then using MarcEdit to manipulate the fields, take out the MARC tags, and then re-export as a spreadsheet for ingest into the dam. So as you can see, we discovered that the scanning was only the start of the process. The digital files needed renaming before I could create PDFs, which was really tedious. If the PDFs were too large, you couldn't open them in the dam, you had to download them. And then in the collection online, you couldn't open the PDFs at all. And the catalog records for some of the trade that were not up to date, they had old non-standard subject headings and incomplete descriptions. So that had to be redone as well. And then copyright is an issue for some of the material. It's not all in the public domain, so you have to look at it item by item. So the situation now, we still have the problem of delivery to clients, and we use Hightail, as Kristy mentioned, to send large files. In the future, we hope we can create an API between our online catalog, which is Sourcey Dynex Enterprise, and the DAM. And now I'll hand it back to Kristy.
Well, we're pretty much out of time, so I'm going to just quickly slide through these. I talked about the collection online already. I'll just say there's about 880,000 photos in collection online. And it comes directly from the DAM using an API that we developed in-house. This is an interesting project we call it TCAP, but it's a harm reduction initiative, trauma-informed collection access project. I can talk about this more with anybody that's interested. I think we're the only institution I know of that's doing this to reduce harm to internal staff when they are looking through collections, to let them know there's something that may be potentially trauma-inducing. We have collections of medical artifacts that are. And also we have a lot of kind of Nazi paraphernalia in the aircraft collection and other things. So we are starting to put these warnings for staff, researchers as well, but it is also for staff. So I will discuss that with anybody who's interested because it is a kind of a unique initiative. And that is the end. So DAM is a reference tool. We use it as such, internal and external. The more useful you can make it, the more people will use it. Obviously, it sounds obvious, but start small and add more over time. Unmediated access is best when possible. It's not enough just to scan your material. You need the metadata. I talk about that metadata or die. It needs to follow standards to ensure it's system agnostic. So if you want to switch systems at some point, you need to be able to export it. And duplicating metadata is not efficient. So we are working with a series of APIs to try to make good connections. Because we may have data in one system, but the photo needs to be described in the DAM. So there's different ways of connecting that. And I'm also happy to show anybody the system at the break if you are interested. Thank you. Any questions? I'm just going to walk. So I was going to run. Now I'm just going to walk.
Well, thank you very much. That's a really interesting presentation, and it addresses some questions I have, which I'll probably be talking to you about later about sort of realia and digital asset management, things like that. I do want to thank you also for mentioning the Teledon project. It was some project that I worked on, and the Ingenium collection was really essential actually for putting that exhibition together, and the accessibility of your artifacts online, the fact that we get the really very comprehensive information about all kinds of bits and pieces in the collection were sort of critical for that, and I think the digital asset management piece really was really critical for us even tracking down those things. So thank you.
Oh, good. Nice to hear from an actual user. Thank you.